Welcome to Transformations, interviewing people changing our world. I'm your host, Diane J. Shaver, and as you notice with each interview, all it takes is one person, one decision, one commitment, and you've got somebody who's helping to change our world. And I want you to begin to understand that each of us has that power within us. And one day I might be interviewing you. So today I have a guest who's making a difference with a population of young men who will be part of running our world one day, our government, our companies. He's the principal of Chapel Hill 7th and 8th grade center, located in the Wayne Township of Indianapolis, Indiana. He's been involved in the overall administrative work of the school, as you would imagine, but he's also led a group called Young Men of Purpose, and that's what led me to want to really talk to him today. And it's based on a book by a friend of his, Roy Dobbs, and we'll get into that in more detail. And he's also the recipient of the Jefferson Awards, Multiplying Good, for all of his work. And he's done a lot more, as you will see. So please welcome Principal of Chapel Hill, mentor to young men students, Multiplying Good Award winner, Kelin Mark. Welcome, Kelin.
Thank you very much. I am very happy to be with you.
Oh, that's great. I like that. So the program that you're running called Young Men of Purpose is based on a book that a friend of yours, Roy Dobbs, wrote. So how does that go? What is the purpose? What is the focus of the book? And just anything you can tell us about how you set that program up.
Absolutely. So a friend of mine, Roy Dobbs, who's also a principal in the township that I used to work in, Pike Township, wrote a book. He was inspired by his dad and really inspired about just mentorship and how other young men can help other young men as we all, attempt to grow and help one another. So I worked in Pike Township for 8 years and then had the opportunity to become an assistant principal first here in Wayne Township. And my second year, I saw a need for the young men in our school to learn how to connect with one another a little bit better. And so I got Roy's book. We met a few times and then began to incorporate Young Men of Purpose here at Chapel Hill. We are entering, I want to say it's our 7th year of Young Men of Purpose. It started with just 19 boys. This year, we have 175 that are participating in the program. And what we try to do, our main thing is we help young men empower themselves, empower their school, the school they attend here, and then, of course, empower their community, which includes home. And so our format is that each month we study a principle chosen by them out of the book, and then we put that principle into action. So, for example, the young men, each year they chose the principle of college readiness and what it truly takes to be ready for college. And it's not just academically, but it's also, can I do laundry? How do I handle having a roommate? Things that are part of the college experience also. And so we study that principle, read through the book, and then I give them, homework to put it into action. So they will go home, talk with parents about learning how to do laundry. They will work with one another about, how do I work together with the roommate? And then each year we take a college visit to close out the studying of that principle. So that's our format each month. For November and December, we focus on service and giving to others. And, we've studied it, talk about it, and then we create opportunities for young men to actually do that. I'm a big believer in, it's one thing to discuss it with young men, but you also want to give them the chance to actually do it. And so we talk about service, and then we do adopt a family. We do a hat and glove drive for our elementary schools. And so it's a great program. It has really helped me as, as an older man, I'll call myself that, and staying connected with young men and just seeing them grow together.
Wow. It sounds so powerful. And I mean, there's so many things to like about, but one of the things that I notice is it's practical. And it's something that lots of times when we study things in college or graduate school, it's so abstract and abstruse, and hopefully we can find a way to apply it. But this is so hands-on. I love it. So what have you seen as a result of this? What have you seen the young men that you're mentoring do? How have you seen them change?
Well, one of the most interesting things is that they are allowed to pick the principles. So they can pick, we pick 8 principles a year to study, and the young men get together and choose them. The one thing that always amazes me is the principles that they choose. So, for example, each year they choose self-confidence. And you may think, young men, they don't suffer from any lack of confidence, but that's something they want to get better at, is self-confidence. They also choose, how do I build a good reputation? And that's something that's, we discuss, we talk about the importance of your reputation. We talk about how do you change your reputation if it's something you don't like. And then we get into things like, a part of your reputation is who you hang out with. And how do you examine friendships, manage friendships, and those type of things. And so to see young men discussing their reputation, analyzing themselves, doing self-reflection, to see young men being honest about, it may seem like I have a lot of confidence, but I really don't, Mr. Mark. Can you help me? And then depend on one another. That has been, I think, just such a refreshing thing to see. A lot of the things they are learning here in the 7th and 8th grade, I learned maybe in my early 30s. And just to see them get those opportunities, it means a lot. And so the impact it's had on our school is young men are being more accountable to one another. And we talk about what that looks like in the classroom. So if your buddy is not paying attention, help him, get refocused. And it doesn't have to be the teacher's responsibility all the time. You're holding your, young men of purpose brother accountable. So those are the things that, like I said, has had an impact on our school. And I have parents calling all the time, just thanking me, Mr. Mark, for the program, and then asking, what more can they do at home?
I love that. And it is building brotherhood is what you're doing. And we're in a time in our country where we're so isolated from one another. So you're addressing that kind of inadvertently maybe, but it's a really powerful thing. And I wondered, does this cut through all the socioeconomic brackets? Is it particularly one socioeconomic group? How is this set up?
Yeah, so the way it's set up for our school, I open it up to any young man that is walking, talking, and breathing in our building. And so I have students just from all backgrounds. We have a growing Nigerian population at our school over the past 3 years. And so it's been helpful for them to, come in and learn more about our school, about, the programs that we have. And so it's open to any young man who, want to be part of something positive. And I talk to our teachers a lot of times about, I understand, we have our meetings, young men are coming down, they're going to miss a little bit of class. But if they're missing class in an effort to learn how to be more responsible, they're missing a little bit of class learning, how do I communicate better with my teachers? Then I say, let's take it as a win.
I love it. So is this done before school, after school? When is the time slot for this?
Great question. So we do it in the morning. We meet twice a month, and we do it during our homeroom time. So young men come in, they get breakfast, and then they come to our meeting. And the reason we moved it, we spent maybe one semester doing it after school, but I said, if I want to see results here in school, then let's do it in school. And so the young men, they will, get their breakfast, come down to our meeting, and then I tell them, now let's put it into action when you go back to class. So we hold all of our meetings, all of our field trips, our community service, all those things are done during the school day.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that went through my mind too, because I interviewed somebody in Haiti who is trying to get kids out of gangs there. So it's a whole different
Yeah.
setup, obviously. But do you see this helping to stop violence that's going on with young men and also drug use, things like that? Do you see it cutting into that?
I do see it just looking at our school and our school district,
Yeah.
where I do see young men being able to have resources to go to, not just men in our school, but also their peers. And then I also see young men utilizing some critical thinking skills to say, hey, maybe I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to go this route. And so it's had a huge impact, not just in our school, but outside of our community. I see boys who are juniors and seniors. Some have graduated and say, hey, Mr. Mark, Young Men of Purpose really helped me get through high school. I've started college, had a few who have, started families. And so helping them think critically, helping them make better decisions, helping them understand who I surround myself with is a reflection of me, impacts those things, when a young man is thinking of joining the gang or maybe doing something they shouldn't do.
Mhm. And that's wonderful because it gives them a reference. Sometimes kids don't have that reference. So that's pretty powerful right there. I always ask this, and this is why I always interview founders of companies or organizations or whatever I'm doing. What was the deciding moment? When did you decide that this was going to be something that you were going to be committed to? Because I see it, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but I see it going through everything that you do. It's a real commitment to helping raise awareness in young men all the way through. So what was that defining moment? Was it a series of things? Was there something in your background that made you want to do that?
Good question. I think it was a series of things, some inside of school, some outside. So I have a eighth grade son who's here with me this year. He's been here for 2 years, and just watching him grow up, I know as his dad, I can't be the sole source of information, the sole mentor. He needed other people to surround him, as he gets older. And so just thinking about what do young men need for the 2 years that we have them before they hit high school. So they absolutely need their core subjects. They need to be organized, but they also need to know, how do I treat one another? They need to know, how do I manage money? And so I said, I want to give them that for the 2 years that we have them. Let's figure out how to do it. And so for us, we try to give students a full experience, academically and socially. And for me, Young Men of Purpose helped just meet that social need that they have. And then on a personal note, when you become an administrator, you move from the classroom into an office, you can get disconnected from your students. You have reports, you have meetings, you have paperwork. And so for me, why I got into education is to connect with students, help them grow. And so this allows me to continue to, talk to students on a daily basis, help them grow socially and personally above and beyond what I do as their principal. So it was twofold, one on a personal note, and then secondly, just understanding, what young men need going forward.
But there was something in you that touched you deeply in order to make that commitment. And one of the things I also read several times that you are really focused on critical thinking. Why?
I think critical thinking skills, number one, it is a skill and it's something that is ongoing. I, at 48 years old, understand still the importance of critical thinking and why that has to grow for me. And so when it comes to incorporating this program, I just thought about the number of times we have to put thinking and critical thinking skills to use from middle school, going off to college, choosing a college, choosing a career. And so I wanted to get that clock started early where young men are, using critical thinking skills that will help them when they move from high school to college, when they have their own families and the things we have to think about and consider. So I didn't have the critical thinking skills in middle school, and I really don't think I developed them until maybe my freshman year in college. And so I said, this is something I really want to focus on. And it's been a big help. And also, thinking allows us to pause for a moment before we say or before we do something. And that's what I want young men to be able to do.
Yeah, and it's in this time and age, it's so important because I think there's less stress on that than maybe when I was growing up, since I'm much older than you. And I began to see that it wasn't really being taught in school. So this is a phenomenal thing. I also read something that you had written there, and it said you have to give kids the conversation, talk to them, what's ahead, the vision, give them opportunities to live that out, to exercise it, to put it into action. Can you elaborate on that statement?
Yes. So, again, I have a teenage son. I used to be a teenage boy, and you would have adults, loving adults, who would talk to you, give you guidance, but the conversation would end right there. And I just want to kind of broaden that conversation, give those experiences, and then also listen. My advice for young men is, I think it's good advice, but I want them to process it and kind of create their own futures for themselves. And so when we're working with students, when I'm talking with them, I also listen and get feedback and hear their voice. And then we talk about what is next, because it's their life. It is their future. And I just want to play a role in it. And so I'm really big on, let me discuss it. Let's talk about it. And then let's put it into action and let's make it work for you. So if I give a suggestion on, let's say, note-taking in class, I have the way it works for me, but I want them to develop something that works for them. And let's discuss that. So I'm a big listener. And I think I developed that being married 16 years. You have to be. And so I just share that knowledge with my young men.
Love that. One of the other things too is that you obviously are looking at them as individuals. And sometimes in classroom, I think people are looked at as a group, an age group, or a male or female group. And I think that that's so important. Have you seen that help people? Because they don't have to fit a mold. They can utilize what you're giving them, but they don't have to fit into a mold.
Yeah, I think it helps when, as you look at young men as individuals, and I allow them to define themselves. So, we do have athletes here in the building. I'm a former athlete, but I can't look at you as just an athlete. I want to look at you as the person you are, the person you want to become, and I want to play a role in that. And I think once you start looking at people as individuals, you value them a lot more. You get to see who they are. Sometimes we tend to clump groups of people together, and then we place a value on that entire group. And to me, that's no way to live. That's no way to see people. So I want to look at our young men as individuals, and I want to value who they are, at this point in time in their life.
But that is a very important quality, because what that does, it cuts through any kind of prejudice, whether it's race or religion or ethnic group or anything. And that's how you get rid of prejudice, just what you're doing. By
Absolutely.
People as individuals. And that right now in this country and other countries, it's critical.
Right. And I think it's also, I want every person to feel a sense of value in who they are, not what they do. So, I talk to my young men who play a sport. I always tell them, don't introduce yourself as, I am Mark and I play basketball. No, I am Mark and I am I love social studies. I want to be an engineer. I want them to place more value than what they do, but more value on who they are as people. I tell them all the time, I want you to feel a sense of pride that you are a respectful young man. that you open doors for women and your mom, that you're a helpful person. I want you to take as much pride in those things as I do, as you take pride in, the sport that you play or the instrument that you play.
Just talking with you, I have to ask, what do you think went into making you who you are? You're extremely aware, you're extremely conscious, you're very committed to what you're doing. What went into that? What made you who you are?
I think my parents allowed me to live and create my life. My parents wanted me to go to college. I mean, I did go to college, but they did not push that on me. So they allowed me to make that decision. Do I want to go to college? They allowed me to, what I want to major in. And so I think just allowing me to grow. And then as I got older as an adult, before I got married, I just didn't really put any boundaries on what I wanted to be. I started out as a manager in Walgreens and decided, okay, I don't want to do that anymore, and got into education. So I think it's just allowing people to continually grow. I like to believe at 48 years old, in my, I think, 17th year in education, I'm still growing. And I know there are things ahead. I just open myself up to growth and do that for other people.
Yeah, it shows. And that's part of the gift that you're giving to these young men. So I also read, as the program is growing, that you've included female teachers as mentors. Talk about that. That was interesting.
Yes, so I've included, maybe the past 3 years, we have a guidance counselor that helps and a couple of female teachers. And they asked, and I was more than open to it. And our young men, receive their advice, because sometimes it can come from a different perspective. We do get into things where it just talks about how do you treat, the opposite sex. How do you treat your mom, your grandma, your aunts, your sisters? How do you treat your female teachers, and what that looks like? And so I want them to give the full, I guess, perspective, and not just coming from me and the other mentor male teachers that help me. And so our female teachers do a great job. They give them a really good perspective on what being a young man looks like from their perspective. And here's, a different type of guidance.
But that's another area that needs attention, obviously. So it's like you're hitting all the places. It's great. I have a quote from one of your students, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. This was very powerful to me. And what he said was, the one thing I really did like that I learned was the real meaning of love, not boyfriend and girlfriend, what love actually means, brotherly love. And this is Derek Phillips. And he said, I appreciate that very much. Can you talk about that? That's a really powerful statement.
Yes. Young men do not discuss just love, the word love. Young men do not want to talk about what they deem as mushy things. I let them know growing up, my dad was worked in the steel mills, provided for our family. He wasn't the most affectionate man. And so we would, shake hands and just do all the manly things. But one thing I truly appreciated as I got older and I had a son was doing the things my dad did, but going further and letting him know what love is from a father to son, letting him know what love is, how he loves his cousins and things like that. And so we discuss those things in Young Men of Purpose. We kind of break down some of the walls that are up between young men, where if I have a good understanding of love of myself, then I will have a better understanding of loving, my brothers here in school and outside of school. And then I will be less likely to, talk down to them, harm them, things like that. And so discussing love in that context, and not in the context of you have a girlfriend, but just the context of what is love and how do you show it to another man? How do you show it to your dad, your uncle, a teacher? How do you show those things in the right context? We get into those things. There are great conversations. There's a few young men, I've taught them how to, shake hands. I've taught them how to, hey, give me a hug, and just those things like that. And they appreciate it.
Yeah, because that's been one of the things that men have talked about over generations, of how they felt deprived of their father's love. They didn't know it was there, and how they've been locked up inside. So that's also another very powerful thing that you're teaching. I mean, this is hitting all the places.
Thank you.
Your friend Roy Dobbs said, if we want to see a change in our community, we have to start with the young men. And that's our goal. Young men are hungry for love, attention, and affirmation. If they get those things, they're happy. And you never know when those moments can change someone's life. So it sounds like that's what you're talking about over and over again.
Absolutely. And, we have 1,300 students here at our schools. We have a pretty big middle school. And I really believe a school can not only be part of a community, but it can have an impact on the community, because once the kids leave here Monday through Friday at 4 o'clock, they're going home to their community. They're going to the grocery store. And so I want to make sure that once they leave us out of this building, they're going back into their community at home, helping their parents, they're helping in their community. And I take a lot of pride, a lot of value in, the role that our school plays in our portion of Wayne Township.
When they go out into the community and do things, do you see a change in them, a sense of maybe more valuing themselves when they contribute?
Yes, the interesting thing, since we have such a large group, we take field trips, we go and do community service. Unfortunately, I can't take them all, but I am never short for young men wanting to go out and deliver gifts for our adoptive families. I'm never short of young men that go out. We've taken donuts to our local fire department to let them know we appreciate them. And I always have plenty of young men that, Mr. Mark, can I go? I want to help. And it's never a lack of that, because young men really want to help serve others, improve their community, and then they feel good about that. When we go on our college visits, it's a requirement that they all go and wear a shirt and tie. And I'm okay with a shirt and tie and tennis shoes and blue jeans, but I do want them in a shirt and tie. And it's so amazing to see young men helping other young men how to learn how to tie a tie. And I don't even have to say anything. They step in, they help each other, and then, they're proud. They feel good about themselves. And when we go on campus, people are saying, hey, I just appreciate you guys coming here, not having to have to wear a shirt and tie, but you did, and you guys look great. So I've learned, if you give young men the opportunity to be more responsible, to help others, they will take a hold of that. And I really enjoy seeing it.
But I think you're also teaching them self-respect. And that's a very powerful thing. I mean, at that age, they have all of that energy, and to have a place to put it is so critical. But do you see, I would imagine you see them coming into the program and maybe not feeling so great about themselves. And then when they leave, what is the difference that you see?
From coming into the program as 7th graders and leaving as 8th graders, probably the two biggest things I see is that young men are more responsible. So they're more responsible for themselves, and then they are a little bit more responsible for their friends and, helping them get through whatever's next, or maybe something going on at home. So they tend to take on more responsibility. And then I do see that sense of self-respect, more pride, more care about themselves. And I just believe if they can get that piece, it will impact other areas of their life. So it's tough to see them, leave as 8th graders and go off to high school. But I do feel a little bit better when they leave, because socially, they're going into high school the last 4 years of their high school life before they go to college or to the military, but they're going with just some more things socially that can help them, face anything. So I feel good about that.
And you're getting them at the right age too, where they're forming, they're taking in what they think about the world and about themselves and so forth. And I think another really powerful thing is knowing that you have something to give. that you have inside of you, something that's enough worthwhile that you can help someone else. And that's a powerful lesson as well.
Yes, and the interesting thing, they give a lot to me also. As their principal, they show me a lot of respect, and we have good relationships, but I learned so much from them. I learned how to be a better administrator for every student in the building because of these young men communicating some of the conversations we have had. I learned from their parents, and just trying to make this a great experience for all of our students. But they have no idea how much they give to me and how much they motivate me as well.
But that's the thing. I mean, when we give, it's like when I'm doing these interviews and it looks like it's on you. But what I'm doing is I'm sitting here learning and getting nourished by everybody that I interview. So it's really a two-way street. One of the things that just struck me, you have a lot to give. And do you ever see yourself doing other things, having other roles, maybe not in school?
I do. One of the things I want to do at some point outside of school is really work with parents more closely on how do they navigate school, from their kindergarten through high school. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot to know and learn. Even as a administrator, and I have an 8th grader, I'm learning every day on how to navigate everything. One of the things my wife and I laugh about, how we learn how to do multiplication is not how kids do multiplication days. And those are the things that, I want to share with parents, is how do they raise good students and get through the 12, 13 years with their students successfully. So that's something that I want to do. And then just continue, what I'm doing with young men, working with people. So I am excited about what's ahead and just trying to think about, how can I better serve my students and the community here in Wayne Township.
Are you a writer?
Yes and no. It's interesting. I have started, this might have been 4 years ago. So I started a book and my plan is to finish it next year. My friend Roy, has told me, hey, Kelin, you have to finish this book. It's going to help students, going to help parents. You have to do it. You've become a principal now, so you've gotten that done. Finish the book. So I like writing, and that is one of my 2020 goals is to finish my book finally.
Yeah, because what I'm feeling as I talk with you is you have so much to share. And I'm glad that you have it for your students, but there are other people who are not going to come through your school who need it, and their parents who need that. I think people have gotten lost in lots of ways. We've gotten so separated out from one another and from our own sense of what's appropriate. And sometimes we get caught in what we think we should do. So what you're saying and what you're doing is so powerful. So if I can add to, yes, finish your book, please. I want to do that.
Thank you so much. I need all the motivation. I can get. My book actually is centered around how do schools engage parents, and then how can parents stay engaged with the school. So that's something I'm very passionate about, and I'm going to finish my book. Yes.
Good. That's the first book, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think there's so much need right now. And when we're through, I'm also going to send you some connections that I have with other educators that I think might be interesting for you to hook up with too, because that's such a critical piece right now. We need all of you so very much. So what do you think are the key things that kids need to know right now? And then I'm going to ask you about parents. So if you were going to encapsulate it, what do these young men need to know right now?
I think probably if I had to pick a couple of things they need to know right now is be open to people helping you. And I tell young men all the time, Your teachers are here to help. Your administrators are here to help. Your parents are here to help. Just be open to people helping you. And you don't have to know everything. You do not have to be perfect. Allow yourself to make mistakes. But if you open yourself to being helped, that's going to make you a better person in the long run. And I know, myself, I've opened myself up a lot more, maybe in the past 5 to 10 years of leaning on other people to help me. And it's just made to such a huge impact on my life. That's what I want them, is to be open to people that are helping you. And then secondly, I really think students overall is to enjoy like each and every grade and each and every class that they have, because in middle school, you're getting closer to high school, things get a little bit more serious, but I just want them to enjoy the process of school and learning and growing. Sometimes we tend to push kids a little too fast to grow up, and I want them to enjoy being 12 and 13 and 14 and just understanding it's okay to be a kid, because when you hit adulthood, it's every single day and it's a little bit different. So those are really two things: just being open to help and just enjoying the process and appreciating where they are.
Do you have impact on the teachers as well?
I do. I talk with our teachers. Our teachers do a great job of recommending students to Young Men of Purpose, working with parents, saying, hey, I think this young man would be great for this. But also in my conversations with teachers, I share with them some of the things the young men share with me. And I give teachers that feedback so they can use it in the classroom. And so we have great relationships, here at Chapel Hill with our teachers. We discuss a lot of things academically, but also socially, because, middle school can be that tough social year. So we do a great job of communicating and talking.
That's great. And what is it that you want to communicate to parents?
For parents, I want parents to know that the people in a school, whether you have a high school or elementary or middle school, in our case, there are people here that can help you, and I want them to connect more with the school. So I don't want parents to only be responsive. So if a kid is not doing well, you contact the school, or if they get in trouble. But I want parents to touch base with teachers on a regular basis. I encourage parents weekly, Sunday or Monday, shoot a teacher an email, just checking in. Hey, how's my son or daughter doing? We have kids here for 180 days, and I want to take care of them, but I want parents to understand I want them involved in the process. So reaching out to teachers, getting to know the administrators, asking where can I help within the school. I want this to be an entire village where teachers, administrators, students, and families are all working together.
So it really feels like you are weaving everyone together, that you've been very successful at that. Do you see what you're doing as an administrator is something unusual? It strikes me as unusual. So that's why I'm asking you, do you see this in other school systems? I haven't seen it a lot.
I haven't seen it a ton on, I guess, on the level that we're doing it. We focus a lot on empowering our parents. So we have parent education classes that we do here at Chapel Hill that deal with everything from managing your kids' social media. We deal with how to set up an at-home library, how to help your student get organized. And so we really believe if our parents are equipped to help their student, and then we're doing our part, it's only going to be the best for our students. And so we really dial in on that parent piece and what can we give parents to help them help their student, because I think that's all parents want. They want to help. They want to make sure their kid is getting the best education possible, and they'll do whatever they can at home. So we try to figure out, okay, here's some information that we can help parents with.
And that really does help, because parents are so busy now. I mean, everybody's out there working and having their own career and so forth. So to give them a focus, I'm sure it helps a lot. So what else do you want people to know who are listening to you?
I want people to know, you hear so many things about education and our educational system, one thing I want people to know is that students are coming to school with a number of different needs. They're coming with different backgrounds. And I want people to know that there are great kids that are walking through our doors every single day. And there are teachers that are in front of them that, they're here on weekends, they're here after hours, and they're really giving their all to your students. And I want people to find ways to support your local schools. I want people to find ways to get a little bit more involved in what's going on at the school. Contact your local principal in the school that's near your home and just ask, how can I, support what you're doing there? Because schools are truly part of a community, and schools can have a huge impact on any community if everyone in that community gets involved.
That's a very powerful message, and I know people will really take it to heart because it's needed now. So I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. It's inspirational. It's given me new hope for these young people who are coming up, and they're going to be the ones that change our world. So you're having a big part of that, and I look forward to your book.
Thank you so much. I absolutely appreciate being on with you. It's been great just sharing my story and story of our students in Wayne Township and Chapel Hill. So thank you so much. On my first podcast, you made it easy.
Oh, I'm so glad. But you will be an inspiration to so many, and I can't thank you enough. Kelin Mark, principal of 7th and 8th grade center at Chapel Hill, educator extraordinaire. That's what I want to say about you, and mentor to young men of purpose. So thank you again. I so appreciate you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the listeners of Transformations, interviewing people changing our world. This is your host, Diane J. Shaver, saying, remember, again, all it takes is one person, one decision, one commitment, and you've got a world changer. And one day I will be interviewing you. And I want you to get inspired with more of the interviews. So go to our YouTube channel and you just type in YouTube and my name, all in caps, DIANNESHAVER, and subscribe to get the latest podcast there. Go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, and Google Play. And you can also donate to help us extend the reach of Transformations on our website, www.transformationspodcast.com. See you next time.